MLB Network insider Tom Verducci joining the program now. And Tom, I want to discuss the New York Yankees first and foremost. I know this is a team that leads the division. I doubt very seriously that there's any question that they make the postseason. But offensively, this is not a team that's been playing good baseball. What's your take?
Yeah, and it's been a while, Alana. You're talking about a stretch where they've gone 11-21. So essentially a month of baseball where, quite frankly, the offense just has not been up to par. I mean, you look at their lineup last night, for instance, getting shut out for the second straight game. They had 5 players in their lineup with an adjusted OPS under 100. And that doesn't include Gleyber Torres, who's been in a funk now for about 100 at-bats. So there's definitely no question here. They've hit a valley in terms of their offense. This team scores more runs via the home run than any team in baseball. And believe me, that's not a bad thing. Hitting a lot of home runs is really good, but they haven't been able to find other ways to win games during this stretch here. I think it's a temporary thing. Obviously, getting Stanton back is going to help. Getting Matt Carpenter back by the end of the year is also going to help. Again, add more home runs to this lineup, and that's their DNA. They win games with the home run, and they just have not hit enough of them lately. I think they're going to be fine, but it may take a while before they pull out of it until Stanton gets back in the lineup.
Tom, the Yankees were shut out twice in a row for the first time in nearly 6 years, and you talk about the home runs, but they haven't won many games in which they haven't out-homered the other team, or at least have a home run in the game. And we always talk about how good pitching wins, beats good hitting. Is that going to be the case if this team goes, tries to get deep into the postseason?
It may. I mean, you look at their batting average with runners in scoring position. They're generally in the bottom 10, 11, 245 area. It's not how they win games. I think also the other thing, Alana, is some of the injuries to the bullpen guys and the loss of effectiveness of Clay Holmes. They've lost a lot of close games during this stretch, and particularly ones where they had a lead late. So they need to iron out the back end of the bullpen. Now, the good news for them is lately, Aroldis Chapman looks really good. He's made some mechanical adjustments with his arm swing. He shortened that up a little bit. He's being aggressive with his fastball again. That's what Aaron Boone always wants to see. So it looks like he's back in play as a late inning option. But, injuries to Michael King and some other guys have really forced people in some different sort of roles. They need to figure out, a better formula to end games. They're not quite there yet.
I want to ask you about the other juggernaut in the NL. Of course, the National League leading Dodgers as far as wins are concerned, first team to 80 games. I know everyone tells me I'm too much of a Dodger homer, but they're a juggernaut in the National League. What do you make of the news, though, Tom, that they lose Walker Buehler for the remainder of the season?
Well, I can't discount it because Walker is besides being a great pitcher, he loves the spotlight. We've seen him come up big in the postseason. I actually thought if he was able to make it back and wasn't stretched out, he would have an opportunity, I thought, to close games for them the way Julio Urias did a couple of years ago. He certainly has the temperament to do that. But I do think, Alana, the Dodgers thought all along it was probably only an outside shot that they were going to get Walker Buehler back. So I don't think they're losing a guy they were counting on. But they are getting Dustin May back, and he's been terrific. And I know it's only minor league rehab starts, but the reports on him have been terrific. Not that he can just step in and be Walker Buehler. But here's the other thing to remember, Alana. When we talk about the Dodgers in the postseason, every team we talk about their rotation. The Dodgers have played 77 postseason games under Dave Roberts. Do you know how many times their starting pitcher has gone through the lineup 3 full times? 6. 6, that's it. And their relief pitchers have more wins than their starting pitchers over the 77 games. Folks, it's not 1968 anymore. That's not the way games are won with Koufax, Osteen, and Drysdale. No, to me, I look at guys like Brusdar Graterol and Blake Trinan and whether they can come back or not. Because to me, depth in bullpen is going to be an issue, especially when you look at that National League postseason schedule and that NLCS. And yeah, we're getting ahead of ourselves here. You might have to play 5 consecutive days. So depth of bullpen really becomes an issue at that point. So I don't make a big deal. The way the Dodgers run things is these starting pitchers manage the game. They don't necessarily win games. They're 21-21 in those 77 playoff games. Relievers are 23-12. That's how they get it done, and I think their starting pitching is plenty good enough to manage a game for 5 innings.
Well, Dave Roberts agrees with you, Tom Verducci. He was just on the program. They think that they have plenty of pitching to do it. You mentioned the postseason format. I mean, there is a very real situation that we'll take the Dodgers, for example. They can have 5 days in between the end of the regular season and then when they would start the NLDS. How do you see this all playing out, and what are the strengths and the challenges of this new postseason format?
Yeah, I didn't like this format when it first came out. I preferred the other one where there was only one bye and one extra playoff team, and you got to pick your opponent. I thought that would have been cool. But yeah, being the 1 or 2 seed is definitely an advantage, and I know there's some rust, and we always talk about that. How many days off are too many days off? And you look at the American League side, too. You know, when you get to the division series, there's a game 1, an off day, a game 2, and another off day. So the number 1 and 2 seeds in the American League are looking at a lot of off days. They only play 2 games in 9 days once the season ends. That's a lot of rust, but I do think it's still an advantage for those teams, Alana. You think about it. You know, the number 1 and 2 seeds go in with a fully rested rotation and bullpen, and they're facing a team that survives a best out of 3 wild card series. It's going to have to use, obviously, their number 1 and 2 starting pitchers, maybe 3. So you're starting with your 4th or 5th starter and a bullpen that's already been taxed. So advantage 1 and 2, even with the rest. But again, I think a difference maker is going to be if we get to an NLCS and it goes the full complement of games. We're talking about playing straight through from game 3 to game 7. We have not seen that before, and that'll be interesting. I think it's more like a regular season kind of rhythm to it without the off days, but it's certainly going to test depth of pitching staff, not just 1 or 2 guys.
And also, it's going to test the limits of travel, too, and getting from place to place. I want to ask you one final question, Tom. Chris Woodward joins Joe Maddon and Joe Girardi as managers to be let go mid-season. Your take on the decision by the Rangers to let him go, and where do they go from here as far as naming a new manager?
Well, first of all, I think it comes down to this number, 6-24. That was the Rangers in 1-run games under Chris Woodward. How bad is that? Only 1 team in history had a worse winning percentage in games decided by 1 run. That was the 1935 Boston Braves. They were so bad, Babe Ruth quit that team in the middle of the season. So listen, if a handful of those games go the other way, I think Chris Woodward still has his job. But I think what the Rangers saw here, first of all, I think they thought more highly of their team than the rest of us did. They thought they had a chance of competing for a wild card team. That didn't happen, even after a really good May. So the season started falling apart, and they're like, uh-oh, we have to create some momentum for 2023. And that's why I think this change was made, because the Rangers think that they can contend next year, and they didn't want these last 2 months go without gaining some momentum. Who's in play? I don't know, but I think it's probably going to be someone without experience. I say that because 4 managers have been fired this year. Each time they've been replaced by someone who has never managed before in the major leagues. This is where the game is going. Front offices don't want guys who come in with established philosophies. They want someone who's going to implement their philosophy. So typically it's an organization guy, knows the talent, doesn't have a learning curve in terms of learning personnel, but is going to follow through on what the front office wants to do.
Well, that's a shame, because take a look at Buck Showalter with the New York Mets. I'm going that direction. Tom Verducci, we always appreciate your insight. Thanks very much.
Thanks a lot.